Hello, friend. This is Ryan Hicks at TalkToProfit.com. Today I want to talk to you about a question somebody had about when they started learning about the law of attraction and thought that they understood it, that their life actually got worse. And doesn't that prove that the law of attraction doesn't work, or maybe this shouldn't work for them? But see, here's the thing that's missing in that. Many people don't understand that when they start to change things, there's two things that occur. One is you still have all the old seeds sown. You still have all those old harvests being brought in. But the other thing is your awareness has changed. You now think differently. You now look at life differently. You now see things differently. You're no longer blind. This would be like a legally blind man getting glasses, and now all of a sudden he realizes, oh, my house needs a paint job. My wife isn't as pretty as I thought she was. My clothing is bland, it's ugly, and all these things, because he now has eyes to see. His vision is clear. So sometimes you're thinking that things have gotten worse when really is things are leveling off, but you are starting to recognize all the problems that you had, but now you know how to shift them into your favor, how to make them work for your blessing, for your good. Instead of wallowing around in that and continuing to keep attracting it over and over and over again, you now have the tools to attract God's goodness into your life, to receive His goodness freely, to freely be blessed liberally, abundantly from God's riches and glory. And my friend, that's freely available to you. You don't have to walk around being blind, groping around in the dark for a light switch, so to speak. You can have light and be a light and walk in that newness of life where you have the life that you want to have. You're living a life by design, by creation, co-creating with God that life that you want, that abundant life that Jesus came to give you. You do not exist to be here suffering and learning lessons through your suffering and all this stuff people like to talk up because their religion's powerless, because their belief system's powerless, because their worldview is powerless, and they have no control over life, and they're just going around blindly leading the blind. And they're being tossed about to and fro, and life and circumstances rule and control them, and they're just pawns or victims of life, so to speak. But my friend, that doesn't have to be you. You may recognize as you start to have this growth in grace, you start to recognize what you're attracting, that you may see things that appear to be a little bit worse. Now, maybe in some respect, it might actually get worse because maybe you're starting to focus on those things that you don't want. Because now that you recognize that you have some control, maybe you've got off into a ditch, got off into some error, because now you're focusing on that thing in your life that you don't want. Meanwhile, remember, the law of attraction is about you focusing on the good, focusing on what you do want, not what you don't want. It is you understanding and guarding your heart, protecting it from all those evil thoughts, those negative thoughts, those low vibration thoughts, and instead guarding your heart, keeping it with all diligence, because out of it flow the issues of life. Knowing that out of it flows the issues of life, that from your faith, from your belief, from what you are thinking about and focusing on regularly, you are getting that as a result. So if you now know and understand the law of attraction, then you know if there's something negative in your life, you know how it got there. And more importantly, you know how to rid it from your life. And it's not from you focusing on it. It's not from you dreading it and wondering when it's going to go away or whining and crying and praying about it. No, it's about focusing on the goodness of God, understanding His blessing in your life, understanding the infinite abundance of God freely available to you, not limited, not held back, not restrained, but freely available to you right here and now. And focusing on that. Thinking about those things that are of good report, those things that are lovely, those things that are virtuous, those things that are praiseworthy. When you're focusing and thinking about those things only, my friend, that's what you get. And when you're being a follower of God, an imitator of God as dear children, and you're thinking like Him and speaking like Him and believing like Him, you start to get the life that you want. There may be some growing pains at first, maybe not. But in the end, if you keep focusing on the good, don't focus on the worst that you're claiming to believe for, you're claiming that you're receiving. Focus on the good. Meditate on the goodness of God. Focus on that and keep continually in that mindset, that vibrational state. And you, my friend, are going to have the law of attraction work in your favor every time. That's what happens. If you don't guard your heart, if you don't keep it with all diligence, and you just keep letting the cares of the world and worrying about this, and, well, this looks like it's getting worse, and you start focusing on the negativity, you don't keep your mind on those things that are lovely and of good report, then that's all you're going to do is start attracting more of those issues of life, more of those negative issues of life that you don't need to be experiencing. Listen, at some point you have to, as a man or woman, stand up and say, you know what? I refuse to experience any more of that negativity. I refuse to focus on that. I refuse to let that rule my life another day, for even another second. I refuse to have that in my thoughts. I'm going to focus on the good. I'm going to focus on God. I'm going to focus on those things of good report, those things that are lovely, those things that are praiseworthy. I'm going to think continually on those things and those things alone. And when you do that, you will start to bring about the best you could possibly receive in this life. Now, you can get carried away looking at what is, talking about what you don't want, talking about this is bad and that's bad. But then you haven't guarded your heart. You haven't kept your heart with all diligence. And you're just going to attract more of those things you don't want, more of those things that are negative into your life. And let's face it, that's not what anyone wants. But very few people will take up the task. Something that is simple, it's easy to understand this. But implementing it may not be as easy because you've had decades of programming, decades of habits of thinking about negative things, of being so materially focused that you see something negative and you allow the circumstances in your material world to affect you and control you and change what you think, change how you think, change how you approach life, change what you do, and you're not operating in faith. You're walking by sight in that point. But instead, you rise up, understanding the law of attraction, you rise up in faith, walking by faith, not by sight. These things around you, they don't move you. You're not controlled by them. You're not tossed about to and fro. You are confident and bold in your faith in God, knowing the goodness of God, knowing that it is continually flowing before you, and ever before you only lies more of His goodness and grace. My friend, focus on the good. Only think about those good things of God, and you, my friend, will continue to receive a harvest of good. I pray this is a blessing for you. May God bless you richly.